Welcome, everyone. Today, let's take a moment to dive deep within ourselves, because today we're going to talk about letting go of the excuses that have held us back from living our truest, most fulfilling lives. Every single one of us has dreams, desires, and incredible potential, yet sometimes we find ourselves making excuses that keep us from reaching them. But I want you to remember those excuses are simply stories. They are just thoughts, and as Louise Hay always reminded us, we are not our thoughts, we are the thinkers of our thoughts. In every person's life, there exists a narrative, a tapestry of thoughts, beliefs, and words that shapes who they are and what they believe they can achieve. Often, however, woven into this tapestry are threads of excuses. These excuses appear subtle, familiar, and deceptively comforting. They say things like, "I'm not ready, it's too risky," or "I've failed before, so why try again?" And while they may seem harmless at first, these excuses slowly start to define us, limiting our vision and confining us to small, comfortable boxes. But what if we could look at excuses differently? What if, instead of seeing them as immovable barriers, we began to see them as stories? Because in reality, that's exactly what they are. Excuses are stories we tell ourselves, stories shaped by our fears, past experiences, and doubts. They are not truths, but rather perspectives we have adopted, often unconsciously, over time. And the beautiful part about stories is that they can be rewritten. Imagine for a moment that each excuse you hold is a chapter in a book, one that you have the power to edit. You are both the author and the protagonist of this narrative, and you have the ability to transform each excuse into an empowering truth. "I'm not ready" can become "I'm learning as I go." "It's too risky" can turn into "This is a courageous step toward my dreams in this light." Rewriting our excuses is not just about overcoming obstacles, it's about reclaiming our potential. Now let's take a closer look at why we hold on to these stories in the first place. Human beings are naturally wired for self-preservation, and our minds are constantly seeking safety and comfort. Excuses serve as a psychological shield, protecting us from the fear of failure, disappointment, or rejection. For example, if we tell ourselves that we're too busy to pursue a new career path, we create a comforting narrative that justifies staying in our current situation. This allows us to avoid the discomfort of change and the risk of trying something new, but at the cost of limiting our growth. These stories are often rooted in past experiences or external influences. Perhaps at some point in your life, someone told you that you weren't capable, that you weren't cut out for greatness, or that success was reserved for others. Over time, these messages became internalized and created a script in your mind, one that you may have replayed so often that it now feels like a part of who you are. However, these are only beliefs, not absolute truths. Recognizing them as stories allows us to distance ourselves from them, to see them as something separate from our true identity. Excuses also serve to keep us within our comfort zones. Our brains are naturally resistant to change. They prefer routines and familiar patterns because these provide a sense of security. The problem is that growth does not happen in comfort zones. When we cling to excuses, we sacrifice the potential to expand and evolve. By understanding this, we empower ourselves to step outside the bounds of comfort and confront our excuses for what they truly are: mental barriers that can be dismantled. Excuses have a profound impact on our lives, holding us back from reaching our full potential and achieving the fulfillment we desire. They create an invisible cage around us, preventing us from exploring new paths, taking risks, and experiencing the richness of life. When we let excuses control our actions, we miss out on opportunities for personal growth, success, and happiness. For instance, a person who constantly tells themselves, "I don't have time to work on my goals," eventually believes it is truth, allowing that excuse to determine the course of their life. But deep down, we know that time can be created, prioritized, and managed if the goal truly matters. These excuses affect not only our personal growth but also our mental well-being. When we feel stuck or unfulfilled, it often leads to frustration, self-blame, and even low self-esteem. Relationships, too, can suffer. If we avoid expressing our feelings, pursuing our passions, or making time for loved ones because of the stories we tell ourselves, we miss out on meaningful connections and experiences. In our careers, holding on to excuses can result in missed promotions, unfulfilled ambitions, and a sense of stagnation that feels like a heavy weight. In the long run, living by our excuses limits every area of our lives. But we don't have to live this way. We have the power to challenge these stories and rewrite them into narratives that support our growth and potential. It starts with awareness, with observing our thoughts and identifying the excuses we make regularly. When you find yourself saying, "I'm not ready," or "I don't have enough time," pause and ask yourself, is this truly the reality, or is this a story I am choosing to believe? Questioning our thoughts in this way gives us a powerful tool to differentiate between legitimate obstacles and self-imposed limitations. To start rewriting our stories, we can replace limiting beliefs with empowering thoughts. A simple shift from "I can't" to "I'm learning how to" can change our mindset from one of helplessness to one of growth. Embracing a growth mindset allows us to see challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, rather than as threats to our comfort. When we reframe our thinking, we make space for new possibilities, and our lives begin to expand in ways we may never have imagined. Self-reflection is essential in this process. By looking inward and examining the stories we hold, we can uncover where these narratives originated. Perhaps it was a fear of judgment that stopped you from pursuing a dream. Maybe it was a past failure that created a fear of trying again. When we identify the root causes, we can start to release these fears and replace them with affirmations that remind us of our potential. Instead of thinking, "I failed before, so I'll fail again," tell yourself, "Each experience is a lesson that brings me closer to success." This shift creates a new narrative, one that fuels confidence rather than doubt. Visualization is another powerful tool in building new narratives of possibility. Imagine yourself living without the limits imposed by excuses. Picture what your life would look like if you fully believed in your capabilities and embraced every opportunity without hesitation. Visualization helps the mind create a blueprint for success, making it easier to take the necessary steps forward. In addition, using affirmations, positive, empowering statements, helps reinforce these new beliefs. By saying, "I am capable," and "I trust my journey," we start to cultivate an inner dialogue that supports growth and success. There are countless examples of individuals who transformed their lives by rewriting their internal stories. Think of people who overcame immense adversity to reach their dreams, not because they were born without doubts or fears, but because they chose to rise above their excuses. They may have once faced the same fears, but they didn't allow those fears to dictate their actions. Instead, they embraced a mindset of courage, perseverance, and resilience, demonstrating that we all have the power to redefine our limits. Committing to an excuse-free life is an ongoing journey. There will be moments when old patterns resurface, and we may find ourselves slipping back into familiar excuses. But with each new day, we have the choice to reaffirm our commitment to growth and possibility. We can remind ourselves that progress is not about perfection, it's about persistence. By cultivating resilience, we can navigate setbacks without losing sight of our goals. And by practicing self-compassion, we allow ourselves to grow at our own pace, understanding that change is a gradual and deeply personal process. In this lifelong practice of breaking free from excuses, self-awareness and accountability become our guiding lights. As we continue to rewrite our stories, we gain a deeper understanding of who we are and what we are capable of achieving. With each excuse we release, we create space for new experiences, deeper relationships, and a life filled with purpose. Ultimately, by embracing an excuse-free mindset, we reclaim our power as the authors of our lives, ready to create a story of fulfillment, resilience, and boundless potential. Every excuse we make has a story behind it, often rooted in deeper emotional or psychological origins. The mind is a powerful storyteller, and it often uses excuses as a way to protect us from things it perceives as uncomfortable or threatening. Fear, self-doubt, and past experiences influence the stories we tell ourselves about what we can or can't do. To fully understand why we make excuses, we must first look at the psychological roots that fuel these narratives. One of the primary reasons we make excuses is the fear of failure. Failure can feel like a blow to our self-esteem, especially if we've tied our worth to our achievements. For many, the thought of trying and falling short is more frightening than the idea of not trying at all. If we attempt something and fail, it can feel like confirmation of our inadequacies, reinforcing the belief that we're simply not good enough to succeed. But by avoiding failure through excuses, we also deny ourselves the opportunity to grow. Each experience, even those that don't turn out as planned, brings valuable lessons and insights. Yet, when we're afraid of what failure might say about us, we create stories to avoid confronting this fear. We tell ourselves, "It's not the right time," or "I don't have enough experience," because these stories shield us from the vulnerability of putting ourselves out there. The fear of judgment is another powerful motivator for excuses. Humans are naturally social creatures, and the opinions of others can strongly influence our self-perception. When we fear being judged, we tend to hold back, making excuses to stay within the bounds of what feels socially acceptable or safe. We might avoid pursuing a career we're passionate about because we worry that others will think it's impractical or that we won't be successful. We tell ourselves it's just not realistic or people won't understand to protect ourselves from the discomfort of potential disapproval. But when we allow this fear to dictate our choices, we end up living lives that are shaped more by others' expectations than by our own desires and dreams. Change, too, is something many people fear deeply. The unknown can be intimidating, as it brings a level of unpredictability that can make us feel out of control. Humans often seek comfort in routines and the familiar because they provide a sense of stability. But growth and progress inherently involve stepping out of that comfort zone and embracing change. When faced with an opportunity to grow, the mind may start to spin excuses as a defense mechanism. "I don't know enough, I'm not ready," or "this is too risky." These thoughts are designed to keep us in the safety of the known, even if it means sacrificing opportunities for personal or professional growth. By clinging to these excuses, we give up the possibility of expanding our lives and realizing our full potential. Self-doubt is another powerful force behind our excuses. Often we internalize beliefs from past experiences or comments made by others, which leads us to question our abilities and worth. Perhaps a teacher once told you that you weren't good at a particular subject, or a parent expressed doubt about your career choice. Over time, these small instances can compound and create a narrative of "I can't" or "I'm not good enough." When self-doubt is left unchecked, it grows, and we start making excuses to protect ourselves from situations that challenge our sense of adequacy. If we've been told repeatedly that we lack talent in a specific area, we may avoid pursuing opportunities related to it, convincing ourselves that it's simply not our thing, instead of facing the discomfort of disproving this internalized belief. Comfort zones, while safe, can be incredibly limiting. Excuses often serve as mental barriers that keep us within these zones, preventing us from stretching ourselves and embracing growth. Think about the common phrase, "I don't have time." Time is a construct that we all have in equal measure, but how we choose to spend it is deeply influenced by what we prioritize. When we say, "I don't have time to pursue my dreams," What we're often saying is that we're not willing to face the discomfort of changing our routine or reprioritizing our lives. The idea of disrupting our day-to-day comfort can feel daunting, so we make excuses to avoid the effort it would take to step beyond what we know. But comfort zones, while initially soothing, rarely lead to meaningful fulfillment. To achieve our dreams and goals, we must learn to stretch ourselves even when it feels uncomfortable. Limiting beliefs, often shaped by early life experiences, can also drive our excuses. Many of us carry beliefs about ourselves that were instilled during childhood or adolescence, which can shape how we see ourselves as adults. If you grew up in an environment where success was equated with perfection, you might find yourself making excuses to avoid situations where you might not excel. Alternatively, if you were taught that life is a struggle and that success is only for a select few, you may unconsciously adopt a mindset that tells you, people like me don't achieve great things. These beliefs become self-imposed ceilings, dictating what we believe is possible. When we tell ourselves, I'm not good enough or I'm just not cut out for this, we are letting our limiting beliefs define our potential. At times, excuses are reinforced by societal expectations and stereotypes. For instance, people from marginalized backgrounds may feel societal pressures that reinforce certain narratives, leading them to believe they are limited in what they can achieve. These narratives, compounded by systemic barriers, can create a sense of helplessness that feels very real. A person might say, people like me don't get opportunities like that, as a way to shield themselves from the pain of potential rejection or discrimination. These excuses are not just individual struggles, but are tied to larger societal dynamics that affect self-perception and perceived potential. Understanding this connection allows us to see that some excuses are not merely personal failings, but are influenced by broader social conditioning. Many people also make excuses as a way to avoid taking responsibility for their lives. It can be easier to blame external factors than to acknowledge the role we play in our circumstances. If we believe that our situation is the result of something outside our control, we free ourselves from the pressure of making changes. We tell ourselves, I can't succeed because the odds are stacked against me, rather than looking at how we might be able to work with the resources we have. By choosing to relinquish control in this way, we end up feeling powerless, unable to see that, while we may not control everything, we do have the ability to make choices that lead us toward our goals. Taking responsibility requires us to face the reality of our situation and accept that change, while challenging is within our reach. It's important to remember that excuses are not inherently bad. They are simply mental patterns that our minds use to cope with challenges. When we understand that they often arise from a place of self-protection, we can approach them with compassion rather than self-criticism. Recognizing why we make excuses allows us to gently challenge them and replace them with narratives that serve us better. For instance, instead of allowing the fear of failure to keep us stagnant, we can reframe our thinking to see failure as a step in the learning process, a necessary experience that brings us closer to success. This shift allows us to transform excuses into motivators, propelling us forward rather than holding us back. Ultimately, excuses are mental constructs that can be reshaped and redefined. By understanding the root causes of our excuses, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of change, self-doubt, comfort zones, limiting beliefs, societal influences, and a reluctance to take responsibility, we gain the awareness needed to start rewriting these stories. This process requires honesty, self-compassion, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. But by doing so, we begin to liberate ourselves from the mental constraints that have held us back. We allow ourselves to step into a life that reflects our true potential, one that is not defined by the limits of past beliefs or fears. Embracing this journey allows us to move forward with courage, authenticity, and the knowledge that we are capable of so much more than we once believed. Excuses, though small and often subtle, have a profound impact on our lives. They seem harmless at first, simple reasons for why we don't pursue something, try harder, or take a leap of faith. But each excuse is like a tiny weight that holds us back from realizing our potential. Over time, these small weights add up, creating a burden that limits us from becoming the person we truly want to be. When we rely on excuses, we end up placing limits on what we can achieve, inadvertently accepting a life of missed opportunities and unfulfilled potential. Excuses don't just limit us individually, they affect the quality of our relationships, mental well-being, and even our career growth. When we make excuses, we're essentially saying that the challenge, goal, or dream before us is too difficult or unreachable. But that's rarely true. More often, these excuses are simply a way to avoid discomfort, to sidestep the effort or vulnerability required to step into something new and unfamiliar. By not confronting them, we allow them to dictate the trajectory of our lives, often without even realizing it. Living in the shadow of our excuses ultimately keeps us stuck in a state of complacency and regret. Think of a person who has a deep passion for writing but consistently says, "I don't have time to write." This individual may continue with their daily routine, holding on to the belief that the lack of time is the reason they're not following their dream. But time is a resource that can be managed with intentional effort. They could find moments each day to dedicate to writing. By letting the excuse of no time dominate, they risk living a life in which their passion remains unfulfilled. Over months and years, this excuse becomes a story of missed potential, a narrative that keeps them from fully engaging with the gift they have to share with the world. Excuses also impact our mental health. When we avoid taking action because of excuses, we're left with a sense of incompletion and sometimes guilt. We may start to feel disappointed in ourselves, recognizing that we're not living up to our own expectations or dreams. This feeling can contribute to a cycle of self-doubt and frustration, creating a mindset that believes I'm not capable or I'm not worthy of achieving my goals over time. These beliefs take a toll on our self-esteem and overall mental well-being. Excuses can lead us to underestimate ourselves, setting us up for a cycle of low confidence and unfulfilled potential. By continually giving into excuses, we reinforce these limiting beliefs, making it even harder to break free from them. Consider how excuses also affect our relationships. Relationships thrive on open communication, understanding, and shared experiences. But when we make excuses, we may avoid addressing difficult conversations, putting in the necessary time, or taking the steps needed to deepen our connections with others. We might say, "I don't have the energy to spend time with family," or "they wouldn't understand." These excuses create distance, and over time, relationships can weaken or even deteriorate because of a lack of effort or engagement. In romantic relationships, friendships, and family dynamics, allowing excuses to dictate our behavior can prevent us from experiencing genuine connection and support. In the workplace, excuses can hinder our professional growth and advancement. When we tell ourselves, "I'm not qualified," or "I'm too inexperienced for that role," we hold back from opportunities that could propel us forward. This reluctance to step up because of self-imposed limitations can lead to a stagnant career where we fail to realize our full potential. Excuses in professional settings can also cause us to shy away from challenges or responsibilities that could help us develop new skills. Each time we allow an excuse to hold us back, we miss a chance to grow, to learn, and to show others and ourselves what we're truly capable of achieving. However, the good news is that just as excuses can limit us, breaking free from them can open doors to endless possibilities. Each time we confront an excuse, we reclaim a bit of our power and potential. Instead of telling ourselves, "I don't have time," we can reframe it to say, I can make time if this is truly important to me. Replacing excuses with small, achievable steps helps us build confidence and momentum. Over time, as we continue to challenge and replace excuses, we begin to see ourselves in a new light as capable, resilient, and worthy of pursuing our dreams. Changing our relationship with excuses requires self-awareness and a commitment to growth. The first step is to become conscious of the excuses we regularly make. When you catch yourself making an excuse, pause and ask, is this truly a valid obstacle, or is this a way to avoid discomfort? By examining our excuses, we can start to see them for what they are: protective mechanisms meant to keep us in our comfort zones. This awareness allows us to separate ourselves from our excuses, to see them as stories that can be changed rather than fixed limitations. To further build new narratives, try reframing each excuse with a positive intention. If the excuse is "I'm too old to start something new," reframe it to "I have the wisdom and experience to pursue this path." When we shift our perspective, we're no longer trapped by our limiting beliefs. Visualization exercises can also be helpful here. Imagine yourself moving beyond your excuses and living a life where you actively pursue your dreams. Visualize the joy, fulfillment, and growth that come from embracing challenges and overcoming obstacles. This mental imagery can motivate us to take real-world steps toward our goals, breaking the cycle of excuse-making. One of the most powerful tools for overcoming excuses is self-compassion. When we're too harsh with ourselves, we're more likely to avoid challenges that might expose us to criticism or failure. But by approaching our journey with kindness, we can give ourselves the grace to try, fail, and try again. Self-compassion encourages a growth mindset, allowing us to see setbacks as opportunities for learning rather than reasons to give up. By being gentle with ourselves, we remove the fear of judgment, making it easier to let go of excuses and move forward. As we break free from excuses, we start to see changes in all areas of our lives. We find that we're more confident, more engaged, and more connected with our true purpose. Our relationships improve as we invest more time and energy into the people we care about. Our careers grow as we take on new challenges and responsibilities, no longer held back by self-imposed limitations. And perhaps most importantly, we develop a deeper sense of self-worth, understanding that we are capable of achieving our dreams. In conclusion, the power to move beyond excuses lies within each of us. Excuses may start as small, seemingly harmless thoughts, but they can become significant obstacles if left unchecked. By recognizing that excuses are simply stories, we can take control of our narrative and choose to create one that aligns with our values and aspirations. We can rewrite our inner dialogue, transforming "I can't" into "I am learning and I'm not ready" into "I am willing to try." The journey to an excuse-free life requires courage, patience, and self-compassion, but the rewards are profound. As we let go of excuses, we open ourselves to a world of possibility, one where we are free to pursue our dreams, build meaningful connections, and live with purpose. With each excuse we leave behind, we step closer to becoming the best version of ourselves, embracing a life filled with growth, resilience, and fulfillment.